Alright, so this is kind of a different video. Because, I mean, I've done the interviews. I've done the looking back. I've done the Q&As. But this one, it's more of talking about something about what happened recently. So for those who don't know, there's a certain thing that happened in the world of wrestling this past Wednesday night. And it's not like, oh, just a bit of news that broke during a show. No, this happened on live TV. It includes one of the biggest names currently in AEW. Alright, so to set the scene for this whole mess that happened with AEW and MJF, this is how we got to this point. So, within the last few months, there's been a lot of rumors that MJF might be on his way out of AEW. I mean, he's under contract right now till 2024, but Tony wants to get him re-signed, and MJF is not having any of it. Apparently, contract talks have absolutely stalled out, and at the same time, MJF has been in a big feud with Wardlow, who was his bodyguard for 2 years before eventually turning on him at the Revolution pay-per-view. And this is all building to a match between MJF and Wardlow at Double or Nothing. If Wardlow wins, MJF, he doesn't own Wardlow, basically. MJF has to let him out of his contract, and Wardlow's free to sign with AEW. Even though, yeah, he totally has not been with AEW for 2 years. But if Wardlow lost, he wouldn't be allowed to sign with AEW. Though, again, at this point, because we know how kayfabe is, he totally hasn't been signed with AEW for the last 2 years. And what really kicked everything into motion for this absolute eventful last week, well, over a week now, for MJF. So we start on Dynamite. There's a steel cage match with Wardlow and Shawn Spears. It's the last test Wardlow has to go through to get his match against MJF at Double or Nothing. And MJF is a special guest referee. And I'll say this, MJF, with the Rush shirt and the shorts, I got instant flashbacks to 1990s Michaels. Shawn Michaels. That's just the vibe he was giving off. And we know, okay, there's not a shot that he's going to count the 3 on Shawn Spears. He's not going to give Wardlow that 3 count. Wardlow has to go through all these obstacles just to get to MJF. That's exactly what happened. He wouldn't count the 3. And then as Wardlow's going for a powerball on Shawn Spears, MJF, low blow, there's like, Spears, get the chair. Because that's been his gimmick for 3 years since he whacked Cody with it at, it was, yeah, Fyter Fest 2019. For a second, I almost said Fight for the Fall in 2019, but it was Fyter Fest. Because it was after that match with Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin. That it was a time limit draw. People were like, 5 more minutes. And Cody's like, 5 more minutes? Okay. Spears comes out, whacks him unprotected with a chair. Unprotected chair shot through the head. And that's been Spears' gimmick basically for 3 years. Just have the chair and beat people up with it. So, MJF is holding Wardlow. He's saying something. And then Spears goes for the chair shot. Wardlow ducks. And he absolutely pancakes MJF. And one of the commentators is like, oh, and then Tony Schiavone's just laughing. As there's just Shawn Spears like, oh crap, I just screwed up. Then MJF's just on the canvas, just dead. That's absolutely lifeless. And then Wardlow pops up behind Spears, and I was watching this live. I'm like, Spears, you done for. And then a couple power bombs later, new ref comes out. 1, 2, 3, Wardlow wins. Then we get MJF and Wardlow at Double or Nothing, which Wardlow has all the momentum for it. And then we get to the day before Double or Nothing, which AEW normally has these meet and greets they do before a pay-per-view. MJF no-shows it, and they can't even call him. They try calling him. They aren't getting a word. By Saturday night, there's already rumors that he had gotten a ticket out of Las Vegas. The pay-per-view was in Las Vegas. So there are rumors that he ended up getting a plane ticket and was flying back, which that ended up being false. Then we get the Double or Nothing. We don't know if he's showing up. He shows up for his match just a little before the start of the show. And I know this is as punishment. Wardlow absolutely squashed MJF. MJF had no offense in that match. So Wardlow wins. He gets his freedom. He's officially with AEW now. And then after the show, Tony Khan said that MJF would not be on the road with them for a little bit. They're like indefinitely, because they didn't know what was happening. And then a couple hours before Dynamite on Wednesday, I see a post, MJF to speak tonight. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be interesting. And they had it after the opening match. The opening match with it was CM Punk and FDR beating Max Caster and the Gun Club. That was the opening match for Dynamite. And then we will hear from MJF. MJF's music hits, and as always, he gets booed out of the building. He goes into the ring, he starts his promo, and he starts with,
I am in a lot of pain right now after what happened on Sunday.
And we know that he was in some hot water already, but some of the things he was saying during the promo, because he's like, oh, you people want to hear me talk?
But this is Max Friedman talking!
Then I'm like, okay. It's Maxwell Jacob Friedman. This time, it's just Max Friedman. And then he says,
big merger, boss! A lot of important executives here tonight to watch your product. Would be a real shame if something bad happened.
Then I'm like, oh no. It was at that point I knew this was not gonna end well. This was not going to end well for anybody. That I knew. Yeah, his exact words were, big merger tonight, boss. Lots of important executives here tonight to watch your product. Would be a shame if something bad happened. And then he also mentioned how Tony was trying to patch things over. Too little, too late. And another thing he mentioned was when the company started, it was all friends wrestling. Everyone was handed a ticket except for me. See, I had to write my own. And boy, do I have good penmanship, because I've created moment after moment after moment for this company, and I still get no respect. And then the crowd starts to somewhat cheer him a little bit. They're mostly boos. Then after a little bit, that he also mentioned, every time I come out here, I'm not expected to hit home runs. I'm expected to hit grand slams. And I do that shit his words, on a weekly basis. And then after the next bit, that's when the crowd starts to cheer. He's like, it's funny that I hear boos, but I also hear clapping.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Where were you guys? Where were you guys this whole weekend when you were calling me an unprofessional piece of shit? I'm just curious.
I'm just curious. Then when that happened, I'm like, oh, he didn't forget that he ended up also calling the fans uneducated marks. When that happened, I'm like, okay, MJF, I get if you're going off on Tony, but you're also going off on the fans too. Chill. Yeah, and he also mentioned like how quickly people's opinions change, which I was like, yeah, it does. And then he goes back to being taken for granted. He's like, here's something you guys can't take for granted. Here's something he doesn't want you to know. That referring to Tony Khan. Do you know, guys, who is the second biggest minute-for-minute draw in this entire company? Nope. You wish. It's me. It's me. And if you don't believe that, ask that boy Tony in the back to see what he's got to say. But whatever you do...
Whatever you do, don't ask him to reach into his pockets and pay the man who's been busting his ass for him since day one. No. Make sure he hoards all that money. Make sure he hoards all that money so he can give it to all the new ex-WWE guys he keeps bringing in. That can't lace my goddamn boots.
I was watching that live. I'm like, no. Which I'll say this. If this is a worked shoot, this is absolutely brilliant. I will say that. Because I know this is a normal shoot. There's also some worked shoots that have happened. If this is a worked shoot, this is absolutely genius on the part of AEW. Because now, that is like, you get them fully invested in what's happening. And they also, kind of adding on to it, they removed MJF from the roster, and they also removed his merch too. They did that yesterday. I saw that. And then he followed off, he's like, hey boss, would you treat me better if I were an ex-WWE guy? And I'm like, oh, Max. And then back to Tony, because all this is for Tony. He's like, you don't get it. Here's the problem with you, boss. You got a position of power in a wrestling company when the only position you should be assuming is behind the guardrail with all of them. Then proceeding to say, I don't want to wait until 2024, but you won't listen to me, so allow me to make it a little easier for you.
Tony, I want you to fire me.
And then a fan said something. He said,
don't count me down, you piece of shit! Shut your mouth!
He said that on the air. And then back to the camera, he's like, Tony, look at me. Look at me. I want you to fire me.
You fucking mark! Fire me! Fire me!
Then the mic gets cut out. And then the whole TV feed cuts out. That promo from MJF, mwah, brilliant. I loved every second of it. Legit, when that happened, I was speechless too. I'm like, what just happened? I'm just still processing everything. Even now, I'm still processing everything that was said. I'm like, okay, was this a shoot or was this a worked shoot? Though, I'm saying, if this is a worked shoot, I feel like what they're doing now that they removed him from the roster page, You know, just have everything calm down for a couple weeks. Have him come back in a few weeks, and the next thing you know, all hell's gonna break loose. Oh man. I'm all for this. I am all for this. It's probably the hottest thing that's happening in all of professional wrestling right now. And I love it. I absolutely love this. I can't say a negative thing about that promo. That had full CM Punk 2011 all over it. It's hard now to choose what one was better, because it's close. That was definitely I'd say comfortably a top 3 shoot promo of all time. Of all time. You put that in with CM Punk's pipe bomb in 2011, Paul Heyman's promo in 2001 before Survivor Series, and now you have that. That would be in the top 3. Yeah, so my audio cut out for the last 18 seconds of the video, but I was really doing the outro. So, what are your thoughts on the whole MJF situation? Shoot promo. Is it a work shoot or an actual shoot? So, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. TJ signing off. Peace.